LetFreedomRing2016.com, the radio show.
Paid for by Dr. Kuimars Kiani for Congress 2016.
Yes.
Hi, I am Dr. Q. Please stay tuned.
Okay, this is...
we are beginning in a few
seconds. Yes, this is Dr. Q. This is LetFreedomRing2016.com, the radio show, sponsored by Dr. Kuimars Kiani. This is Jim Condit Jr. Sorry, we're technically getting the endless technical things in line here. Dr. Q, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Jim. Doing fantastic.
Okay, good.
Thank you for asking.
Donald Trump has taken on the international bankers this week, and that's what we're going to be talking about the first part of the program. Second part of the program, we're going to have former Marine, ex-Marine, Ken O'Keefe about his attempts to get into Palestine on the last flotilla and on the women's flotilla that was just stopped. So before that, though, we're going to get into Donald Trump bringing up for the first time in decades a presidential candidate bringing up the international bankers. And if you put in Google Trump international bankers, you'll see the whole media is going crazy about it in print. They don't want to mention it too much over the airwaves lest people start thinking about it. But Dr. Q, first let's talk about your campaign here. Dr. Q's running in the 1st District of Ohio as a write-in, and you are, we're doing a lot of things. We were in a kind of a back and forth with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and iHeart just to get this program on the air. It took us 3 weeks to get it on the air because they were saying that even though you're certified as a write-in candidate by the Hamilton County Board of Elections, which is where Cincinnati is, that you weren't a real candidate. So you've been doing all kinds of things. And one thing that we got going this week is that with the Hispanic community, they have a full-color brochure out that you helped to pay for, and also your face is on a disc, the jacket of a disc that's promoting the Hispanic immigrants learning English. And talk about that for a minute.
Oh, that is true. That is true. The fact of the matter is one of the main focal points of my campaign is bringing English into the Latino community or Hispanic community. And I tell you why. Because English language is the official language of this country.
De facto, anyway.
Yes, exactly. And if you want to be a part of America, you're more than welcome to be a part of, this country. But in order to be a active part of this country, one of the few conditions is to learn English. Basically,
if you want to really have a chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I was just checking the immigration conditions of Mexico the other day, and believe it or not, they put a huge emphasis on Spanish language. If you don't know Spanish language, you are not welcome in Mexico as an immigrant, as a permanent resident. So you need to assimilate. I mean, I don't care what is your background. If you're a Jew, you're a Muslim, you're a Mexican, you're a Hindu. The biggest thing for us here is the assimilation. And language is that gateway. Without the language, there's going to be misconceptions. There's going to be, because I tell you what, Jim, we did research. We did lots of research, and we found out, actually through my good friend, Jorge Benedetti, he actually did lots of research, that finally the police said, you know what is our biggest problem? And he said, no, I don't know. Tell me. Is it racial? Is it what is it? I said, no. English language. They don't speak English language.
Yeah. So your CD that your face is on the jacket promoting it is to help people learn Spanish to English or English to Spanish, but primarily to have the legal immigrants, Hispanics, learn English so that they can communicate, and especially with the police. So
exactly.
So Dr. Q is willing to talk anywhere. There's an event coming up in the Hispanic community, but it's when we were going back and forth with iHeart and which is KRC and FCC. it's hard to get invited to things. I mean, first of all, there's not that many events. The events that there are usually that are physical, or usually just the campaign workers and their families. So the way to communicate is over the radio or TV if you can afford it, like we're doing. We're reaching more people today than probably you could reach shaking hands for the next 5 weeks. And by the way, we're going to be on this week and this week and this week in the next 3 weeks. This week and the next 3 weeks until the election, up till November 6th. So, and you had a request for a bumper sticker from where? This is kind of interesting.
It was actually, it's Lewis from Washington State, from Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, and he requested bumper stickers, but he's collecting all the bumper stickers he can. So we got bumper stickers, we got signs. Dr. Q's doing a very energetic job, and
you're good.
Okay.
Yes, we're good.
So let's go in now to we're going to have Ken O'Keefe. You're going to want to stay around for that on Palestine and the push for World War III, and that some signs point to. And Nicky Nelson, who was on last week, who talked about the women's flotilla into Palestine. But we're getting out all kinds of information you're not going to hear on Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Fox, MSNBC, CNN. But let's talk about a big, gigantic development, Dr. Q, that happened this week.
Yes.
And that is Donald Trump brought up that Hillary Clinton is working with a cabal of international bankers to end American sovereignty and to steal wealth out of the United States to enrich themselves. Now, this has been known by us and thousands and tens of thousands of people for decades. But Trump finally brought it up in public. This is why even despite his many flaws, I have been backing Trump, because he's saying things that nobody else is saying, and that the major media is trying to keep off the air. Now, he's also saying in every speech, he said this in Palm Beach last week, he said it in Columbus, they told me he said it in Cincinnati, but I wasn't there, the crowd was noisy, I didn't hear it. But I'm going to read an article here, and we're going to comment after each paragraph for the first part of the show here. Because really, this says it all. If people understood this, they could start to figure out why America is going downhill, because we're being sabotaged by this clique of international bankers and their network across the country and across the world. So I picked an article. You can go Google Trump international bankers. You'll get the Washington Post, New York Times, and you name it. You'll get all kinds of places. But I picked out the Jewish Telegraph Agency, which is published in Israel, because they're going to be they're going to give a little more intelligent of analysis. It's being written by Jews in Israel, primarily for Jews in Israel and across the world that read it. And actually, it's a little more detailed than the American articles are.
Yeah.
So here's what they say. They say, Trump delivered a speech Thursday in West Palm Beach, Florida, that sounded some familiar themes, familiar to his campaign, but also to folks versed in anti-Semitism and in classic conspiracy theories of global control that is its lifeblood. So here's what he said. The Republican presidential candidate never mentioned Jews in his proposed text, which he read from a teleprompter with some extemporization. But in declaring that his Democratic rival, Hillary Clinton, is somehow an instrument of a vast conspiracy involving scads of money and, quote, international banks, unquote, he entered what many saw as a territory real and ideological, where hostility to Jews perpetuates and even thrives in their absence.
Yes.
He said, so it goes on, Hillary Clinton meets in secret. Here's a quote from Trump. Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends and her donors, Trump said. Bingo! That's exactly on target. It's the best statement that's been made in the last, maybe for our whole lifetime.
Exactly.
Pat Buchanan often brought up Goldman Sachs. Ron Paul said out at the Fed, the last person that mentioned the problem of these international banks that have the power to issue money in the world and kill people to keep that power, like President Kennedy, by the way, they have the power to issue money, and they are also the ones who have been able to buy up all 5 TV networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, and they also have erected the 3 companies which count our votes in secret. That's ES&S, Heart, which is what we use in Cincinnati,
Yes.
and Dominion, which is used in many. These three companies count 96% of the American vote in secret with the permission of our brain-dead boards of election, who sign a contract not to see their software. It's unbelievable, but this is the fact. So what Trump is getting at here, now Trump is saying in every speech that the election is going to be rigged against him. He needs to say computer rigged. If anybody here knows Trump, which is unlikely, call him and tell him in the debate with the 80 million people, he needs to say computer rigged, not just rigged. And then we can explain here and elsewhere, maybe he'll explain it, how these international banks own the 5 TV networks or control them, and also the people around the international banks, I should say, and they run the 3 companies that count the vote. So, Dr. Q, what is your thoughts before we go on in the article here?
Well, I tell you what. Oh, hold on. Jeez.
You're trying.
We got actually disconnected.
We're trying to do a live Facebook streaming over the internet. Okay, and I have the iFi here. Let me write down the iFi password here. We don't want to put it out over the air, I guess. But,
yes. No.
This producer has been kind enough to get it for us.
Thank you so much.
So, at any rate.
Yeah, let's go back. We are live again. Sorry
on
about
the
that,
Facebook.
folks.
We're live on Facebook.
Yes, sorry about that. It was a computer glitch. Anyway, I think Donald Trump is absolutely right. And the fact of the matter, they try to make it a Jewish thing. It's a pathetic attempt to stop the globalism and to stop the bankers. I don't care what is the religion of those bankers. I don't care what is the religion of these criminals, be it a Buddhist, be it a Hindu or a Jew or a Muslim. I don't care. The important thing over here is that they are doing criminal things behind the closed doors, and most people don't know about it. It's very as simple as that. And what I don't understand with Donald Trump haters, they keep calling him, oh, he's a bigot, he's this, he's that. Let me ask you this. These so-called not bigots and politically correct people who have the, Islamic middle name, such as Hussein, just somebody explain to me, were they protecting Muslims or were they killing Muslims? Obama killed more Muslims than, let's say, a non-Muslim president. These groups who, try to say and look very liberal, they're not liberal at all. They're just a bunch of criminals killing Muslims in the name of Islam or whatever. The Saudi Arabian royal family is killing more Muslims than, like for instance, in Yemen. Aren't they Yemenis? Aren't they Muslims? So they're killing them left and right. In Afghanistan, they paid so much money so Muslims get killed over there. In Chechnya, in Russia, Saudi Arabians finance, their bogus fight with Putin, and so on and so forth. But I tell you what, the Zionists, by Jews, by Muslims, by anybody, by Hindus, by Buddhists, anybody they could. So, to me, for these people mainstream turning something that he said bankers, and definitely most of them are Jews, but lots of them are not Jews. Lots of them are non-Jews, backstabbing the non-Jews. A lot
of the Anglo establishment, which is the Bushes and the Clintons, quite frankly, and that's why Clinton's it's public knowledge she's talking to these banks behind closed doors.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Public knowledge.
Yes.
So anyway, but the point is, this is what's happening. If people don't understand that these bankers around Goldman Sachs and the Fed have owned all the 5 networks, own, quite frankly, iHeart and the 600 stations or 400 stations that they own that we're on. And we're only on here, I should say, because of the reasonable access law. This program would never be allowed in the other part of the year. The stations are the public airwaves. They must carry the programs and the radio ads of congressional candidates if the candidate can pay for them. They got to give you in the last 60 days before election the same deal that they give businesses. That's why this program is on. That's why our 1-minute commercials are on for Dr. Kuimars Kiani's campaign running in the 1st District. And by the way, I forgot to say at the top of the hour, as we were technically fumbling a little bit here, but now I think we got it going on Facebook.
No, we're good. We're good.
You know, I meant at the beginning.
We got disconnected just because something else happened. But,
that's okay. No problem.
Yeah.
So Dr. Q is his name, so everyone can remember it. He's kind of already, the name sticks in your head. He was born in Iran in 1971, was arrested 5 times for trying to get a more open society, because once they overthrew the Shah, it became, you said, like the Soviet Union almost.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you were arrested. He was poisoned and was paralyzed for a year, somehow made it back, became a U.S. citizen in 2005, and I can tell you, he very much believes in the true freedoms of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and checks and balances. So he's a wonderful witness to us Americans to get more serious about our situation. You know.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
So now let me go on and read a little bit more here from Donald Trump. Actually, the Anti-Defamation League came in. That's the
that's the funny part.
Yeah,
they always do that.
Yeah,
don't you love that?
The Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith and Jonathan Greenblatt from them. And by the way, the Trump team tweeted this out. They tweeted, "At Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich her donors." And then the Anti-Defamation League says, "At Team Trump should avoid rhetoric and tropes," which means like metaphors, "that historically have been used against Jews and still spur anti-Semitism." Greenblatt said, "Let's keep hate out of the campaign." Why, when someone mentions bankers, does the anti-Defamation say Jews?
Exactly.
Why didn't they say quit attacking Filipinos or quit attacking Brazilians or quit attacking Haitians? Because they know that once you learn about the international bankers, a few Google searches now, and you know that this is basically the Jewish world shadow government that we talk about, okay?
Exactly.
So, anyway, so then Trump did not seem amenable to that kind of advice. If not hate precisely, he was ready to indulge a willingness to blame a mysterious cabal. There's nothing mysterious about it. It's almost out in the public now.
Yes.
It's those around Goldman Sachs and the Fed. It's what we've been talking about for years. So there's nothing mysterious about it.
There's nothing mysterious.
Then Greenblatt says the election will determine if we are a free nation. No, this is Trump. This election will determine if we are a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. He said, bingo, bingo, bingo. Let me say this because time goes so fast on the show here, Dr. Q.
Yes.
Understand, the international bankers that can issue money and have spent trillions to try to build their world government, even though they might let us still have the name United States. They're more and more taking away sovereignty. They own the 5 TV networks, own all the big radio stations, because they can. If I could issue money, I could start buying up everything too. You know. And then they also own the 3 companies, ES&S, Dominion, and Hart, that count 96% of our votes on secret computer programs in illegal elections, according to 3 Supreme Court decisions. This has been going on since 1988. And what we're afraid is going to happen is they got all these phony polls coming out over the 5 big TV networks. The dud Hillary Clinton is winning everywhere. Karl Rove and all the...
That's not true.
It's not true. All the neocons are coming in, like Karl Rove and the rhinos. And he said Trump doesn't have a chance, basically, to get to win. Ridiculous. But if they fix the computers, he doesn't have a chance to win. So that's why you got to understand that's what's happening. Finally, Trump said international bankers, if you understand that's what's happening, then you can start to piece together what's going on. Our only everyone should start calling, emailing the 5 big TV networks, their local affiliates, and say, we know you're protecting the companies that fix the election by computer. If Hillary Clinton wins, we know it's fixed. We know we don't have a government, because as Roger Stone, the best-selling author of Clinton's War on Women, said, if we don't have honest elections, we don't have anything.
Exactly.
So, Dr. Q, go ahead and your comments on
Yes. Jim, it's very interesting that every time you talk about the criminals, the criminal bankers, they know who we are talking about. And immediately they get, offended.
Yeah.
Why are you...
You're listening to LetFreedomRing2016.com, the radio show.
Paid for by Dr. Kuimars Kiani for Congress 2016.
Okay, this is Jim Condit Jr. again. I'm a co-host, and I'm Dr. Q's campaign manager, Dr. Kuimars Kiani. Dr. Q's here in the studio. Ken O'Keefe, a great spokesman for truth and justice in the world situation today, is on the line as our guest. Nicky Nelson, also a tremendous spokesman for the liberty movement from the West Coast, is also on as our guest. And I want to tell you that Dr. Q somehow, way beyond me, has this live streaming on Facebook at facebook.com/elect-Dr. Q. That's elect DRQ. So we're live streaming on Facebook. We're on 55 KRC in Cincinnati, which is the same station Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and Glenn Beck are on during the week. And we're also on 55krc.com.
Yes.
Hopefully, if you're anywhere in the world, people can. We've sent out communications on 55krc.com. So, Ken, the first part of the show, you may or not have heard, we were talking about Trump bringing up that Hillary's meeting with international bankers to steal American sovereignty and to steal the sovereignty of all the nations. And whatever people think about Trump, in my opinion, that was a great statement. But I want you go ahead now and tell us what anything you want to say about the world situation, but tell us about your experience. You were there on the flotilla from Turkey, I think, trying to get into Palestine. So take it away and kind of tell the audience about something that most of them have never heard about.
Well, with regard to Palestine, I mean, the situation is a disgrace upon all humanity, quite frankly, that we've allowed this situation for as many decades as we have. The fact that the U.S. is the funder for this really terrorism on so many different levels of the Palestinian people, the oppression of them, the violation of their rights in every single meaningful way, all of this has been bankrolled by the American taxpayer, sadly. And as we know, the recent arms deal with Israel is worth over $30 billion. So while the American people, many of whom are sitting there in your audience in Cincinnati right now, but who are not unlike anybody else across that country, understands there's far too little opportunity at home. There are social services and increasing taxes, social services being cut while taxes go up. The situation is dire, and yet there's over $30 billion to give to Israel. So I don't know how much longer this situation has to occur for the people to realize that their government is the enemy inside the gate, just as our founding fathers had warned us of. And the enemy inside the gate is far, far more dangerous than the one outside. I mean, we can sit and talk about the political reality of what's going on in the world, the geopolitics of insanity that we see occurring all around the world. But in my opinion, Palestine is going to be visiting America soon enough. We haven't done what we should have done to stop this madness or this incredible crime that continues to be committed against the Palestinian people, and Palestine is coming to America. I can assure you, if the writing isn't on the wall for many of the American people, it will be soon enough. But the Constitution is all but dead at this point. There is no constitutional law operating in the United States, and therein lies a gift sitting there waiting for the American people to absolutely 100% honor the U.S. Constitution, arrest anyone and everyone who has passed laws that are not only adversarial to the U.S. Constitution, but are in direct violation of it. It's all there.
Yeah.
The mechanisms are in place.
Ken, let me just say that I always like to say to, and by the way, again, this let me say this right now, because the station wants us to say it, and I'm glad to say it. This type of program would not get on the air any other time, but the reasonable access law forces the FCC licensed stations like KRC and WLW and WABC in New York and so forth to carry congressional candidates or federal candidates ads if we can pay for them, both out whatever they give to businesses. So that's why this is on. It's not that the station would never have this on during. That's why on the beginning and the end of this broadcast, in the middle, they say we are required to run this program. I've never heard that before. They usually say we don't necessarily endorse it. So I just want people to know that I'm Jim Condit Jr., campaign manager for Dr. Q. Dr. Kuimars Kiani is the congressional candidate who's sponsoring the show. Okay, now, Ken, I always tell people, we are not against the United States government per se. We're against the criminals who are running almost 100% of the United States government. We want to arrest those criminals. You said it exactly right, and get them out of office and restore people that will not only respect the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but will respect their fellow human beings. Many Americans would cry their eyes out if they saw what Israel was doing with our weapons to the Palestinian people. And isn't that correct?
Well, there's no question. I mean, I've lived in Palestine. I've lived in Gaza for 6 months. I've been to the West Bank several times, Gaza as well, and I've met people on the ground who, I don't care what people have been conned into believing, but these are normal, everyday people, regardless of what you've been told. They would happily go on with their lives and have no issue whatsoever. I can't tell you how many times I've been told in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria, in Palestine, that the people there don't have a problem at all with the American people. The vast majority of the Muslim population throughout that region, I've been told that a million times, but they, of course, have a major problem with U.S. policy. And really the only people that have the best people placed to actually stop these policies are, of course, the American people. But sadly, because of the manipulations of the mainstream media and the constant barrage of lies, the omissions of information that's critical to know, people don't know the truth about what's happened. But if they did, they would be sick to their stomach. And if they ever had the experience like so many Palestinians have, whereby their children have been blown to bits for no crime other than being in the wrong place and being of the wrong religion, if it happened to you, you'd know how you'd feel. You would be willing, most Americans would be willing to kill anyone and everyone who was responsible in any way with the murder of their own children. And this story's been told countless times before, and it's sad that we have to wait for it to come to us. And that's what I mean by Palestine is coming to America and the West. It's coming. The writing is on the wall, and all of the things that the Palestinians and other people around the world have had to endure are increasingly going to occur in the United States because, of course, there is no constitutional law. All of that's been abrogated. Traitors, and I have to say, I don't have a problem with all of the U.S. government. There are certainly a lot of good people out there, yourself and your brother there, who are running for office. I mean, I get that. I appreciate that. But sadly, you are badly outweighed by a bunch of traitors. I mean, with rare exception at the top levels, certainly at the senatorial level and most of the Congress, as Cynthia McKinney laid out very clearly. If your audience doesn't know, they should listen to Cynthia McKinney talk about the pledge, whereby if you want to stay in office and ultimately be able to get any funding to be able to run your campaigns and whatnot, you have to take a pledge, and effectively an oath of allegiance to Israel and to support Israel. And if you don't do that, they will simply fund a candidate to oppose you, and you will lose your spot because you didn't fund Israel. And this is the reality, and it remains true to this day.
And they will rig the election because, again, not all Jews are part of this. Only a fraction are, a small fraction. But I call it the worldwide Jewish shadow government, the worldwide Talmudic Jewish shadow government. They own the programs. They count the elections in secret on secret computer programs. 96% of our vote, 99% of our counties. So they will defeat you. Congressman James Traficant, the late congressman, there's also a YouTube on called James Traficant, a tribute, with it goes into this exact same thing for 6 minutes. Pat Buchanan has said it. Professors Walt and Mearsheimer from Harvard and University of Chicago wrote a book called The Israel Lobby. Former Congressman Paul Finley, who's in his 80s, has a YouTube up called Paul Finley Dares to Speak Out Again about how the Jewish lobby has someone assigned to every congressman, every senator, every state rep, and if they don't go with them, they work to defeat them. If they do go with them, they'll fund them. Now, of course, Q and I have no power whatsoever. He's just running for office, and I understand the United States government is de facto about 99% criminal on certain things right now on what they're pushing. Now, Ken, people don't, the Israelis control the water for the Palestinians. They can turn off their water at any time. They can turn off their power plants. The Palestinians have no air force, no military to speak of. Tell us about the flotilla that you were on that went in. How many years ago was that you were on the flotilla that just tried to visit Palestine from Turkey? Tell us who was on that, about it a little bit, and what happened.
So this was a continuation of the efforts by people around the world who see the terrible crime being committed against the people in Palestine, in particular in Gaza. And what's important to realize is that in Gaza, one of the most densely populated places on the planet, you have a population of roughly 1.8 million people or so. And of that, over half of the population are children, 17 or younger. So every war that occurs, every bombardment that occurs of Gaza, every bit of water that can't be taken from the tap, every bit of electricity that can't be generated from the broken down electricity generation plant, all the medications that are not available because of this blockade, which is now approaching a decade, all of this is collective punishment. And again, I say, if it was happening to your children, how would you feel about it? Would it be any consolation to you that maybe your government was involved in things that weren't exactly appropriate, and therefore it was justified that your enemies could punish the entire population? I mean, none of us would accept this for an instant, but many of us around the world realized the terrible crime that this is and felt an obligation to do something. So one of the efforts was this flotilla, in which several boats and then a proper ship, the one that I was on, the Mavi Marmara, which had roughly 700 passengers from around the world of every faith. There was Jews on board, Christians, Muslims, and we sailed to Gaza, and along the way the Israelis intercepted us. They raided the ship. They murdered 9 people on the day, executed the ballistics. I've read the ballistics reports. One of them was an American citizen of Turkish descent, but an American kid of 19 years old, who was executed. He was shot a total of 5 times, the first 2 to the leg and foot, 1 to the back of the head that didn't actually kill him, 1 to the back, which penetrated his lung and broke a couple of ribs. He was on the ground, still alive. Eyewitnesses who survived attest to this fact. And then the last bullet was point-blank range just below the right eye, the kill shot that ended his life. An American citizen, all of that wiped out from the human rights reports, the country reports that are given annually on nations around the world. You'll see no mention of Furkan in there because, of course, our good friends and allies over there in Israel have that kind of political clout to be able to erase this American citizen from the record.
And so, Ken, could I interject here that the reason the Palestinians are being persecuted, and this is the reason, in my opinion, and you can disagree with me or Q on anything you want. Q's going to comment here in a minute, but we never talked before, audience. Ken O'Keefe and I and Q have never talked before. And so I don't care if you disagree with me, if you think I say something wrong, because we're just trying to get the truth out here. Sure. The reason that we have the persecution of the Palestinians is because Netanyahu's faction, which is opposed by many Jews in Israel, you never hear about the demonstrations against Netanyahu, he's trying to bring about greater Israel, which is a past thing in the Old Testament that's already been fulfilled. They have no right to do this. But they're trying to take part of Iraq, part of Egypt, and they want to get every Palestinian out of Palestine.
Exactly.
It's a slow genocide. Mm-hmm. So that's why we've been over there, not for the oil. Saddam was selling us oil. Mm-hmm. It's nice to take steal people's oil if you're taking their country. But we're there to expand greater Israel and for the purpose. So I don't know if you agree with that or not, Ken, but that is, I want to give some reason to people for why they are doing a slow genocide, in effect, a very slow, but it's to get every Palestinian, in my opinion, out of Palestine so they can take the whole place over.
I agree with that, and I want to bring it back to the last president that actually had any integrity in the United States, and that would, of course, be John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, had he been successful, was exposing Israel's illegal nuclear weapons program way back then and insisting that the Moda, the nuclear power plant in Israel, be inspected way back in the 60s. Had John F. Kennedy been successful, Israel would not have the 200 to 400 nuclear weapons that they're estimated to have. If people are going to Google something as a result of this interview, I would ask them to Google a couple of things. One is, as you've already mentioned, the Greater Israel Project. If you don't know what that's about, you need to know, because it's your traitorous government that is funding that madness. The other thing that I would say people should Google is something called Samson Option.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
Yes, sir.
The other thing I would ask people to Google is something called the Samson option. And under the Samson option, this is a biblical reference to Samson, who, realizing that the enemy was insurmountable and that he was going to die, basically lured the enemy into the temple, and he pushed the columns of the temple down and killed everybody along with him. Now, there is a modern-day version of the Samson option, which effectively means that if Israel ever feels that its existence is threatened, and I can tell you this, just from the normal levels of consciousness that is occurring in humankind right now, Israel is living on borrowed time. There is no room for a place like Israel in a world of justice and peace. This affront to humanity, which was created on the back of the theft of Palestine, if this thing that is happening in the Middle East, this thing called Israel, is willing and ready and has been discussed at top levels of taking out the entire world if it feels its existence is threatened. So these are things that are of very, very big importance to not just the Palestinian people, but to the American people and indeed the people of the world. Because if you think that Israeli leadership is not capable of launching nuclear weapons towards Iran or towards any other country, you're nuts. They are capable of this. And if that happens, we are not going to have time to sit here and debate about what can be done. At that point, we're now going to be in a reactionary state where a potential Hillary Clinton or even Donald Trump, for that matter, could be in office. And what's going to happen then? I mean, it is really silly and really stupid, and I believe a great disservice and a great dishonor to ourselves that our children are going to inherit this mess. And have we done everything that we're capable of doing? Absolutely not. We have much more power than we realize, and by ignorance and cowardice, it seems, we have not exercised that power. I'm hoping, and I believe that we will, start to exercise our true power very quickly. I see the awareness rising on a level which is unparalleled. The understanding of things like false flags is a perfect example. In the aftermath of 9/11, you couldn't even dare to say the truth about how this might, in fact, be something other than what was being presented to us. Now, 15 years later, it's the minority that believe the official version. That in itself is a massive testament to the fact that we've come a long way in 15 years, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And when we do get there, we are going to create a better world. Or if we do not do what we're capable of, we may very well end the world as we know it. That's how high the stakes are.
Right. Now, Ken, Nicky Nelson, let me give her a comment, and Dr. Q, the candidate thing, to comment. We got about 7 more minutes. This time goes so fast, but Nicky, say, what are your, did you want to communicate anything to the audience? I think you have something.
Well, I just wanted to say that Ken is right. The last true president that we had in the United States was John F. Kennedy, and we wrote an article, DOJ records prove President Kennedy was fighting Zionists when he was killed. So he was trying to get Dimona investigated. He was also forcing the Jewish lobby to file as foreign agents under our FARA laws. And they were fighting back and forth with that. We have original documents on TargetFreedomUSA.com all the way up until they killed him. And 30 days prior, Judge Rifkin had stated that if they were to file as foreign agents, that would eventually destroy the Zionist movement. So after they killed Kennedy, what they actually did, and it was called the American Zionist Council. And then it turned into AIPAC, and what the IRS did, which is the collection agency for our Federal Reserve, Jewish bankster-owned Federal Reserve did, is they backdated their nonprofit organization for years. So when they killed the Kennedys, I think that was, like Ken said, that was our last shot. And since then, we've had nothing but traitors in office.
Well, we still got another shot. It's not, as my friend, the late Father Gruner, used to say, it's not over yet. And yes, Ken, I hope we can talk off the air, because we have, Nicky has built a tremendous website called networkamerica.org where people could organize quickly. We could get a few 100,000 people in there tonight if everybody realized, and we could get on the playing field to take back this government. Dr. Q, did you want to say anything? Because then I'm going to let Ken take us to the music. When the music happens, Ken, we got 3 minutes left, and we'll probably say goodbye then to talk about next week's show. But why don't you say something, Dr. Q, and then we'll let Ken finish to the music.
Sure. I totally forgot. But by the way, I guess Ken cannot be heard on Facebook, but I changed the feed. Okay. So hopefully they can hear him now. Okay,
if not, we'll fix it somehow on the YouTube. Yeah.
Maybe next week.
Because we're taping this off the air as well. Okay.
But that being said, I totally agree with Ken. and how they're systematically wiping out not just Palestinians, but Palestinians. The poor Palestinians are the first nation in that region. They've been living there. The Israelis have no rights to be there.
No.
They're from Mesopotamia. They're trying to hide their history. They're trying to hide that they themselves migrated out of Iraq, and now they don't really have a promised land. To be honest with you, I don't. The promised land in Bible, I think, is a mental thing.
Well, it's over. It's over. Even if the Christian Zionists,
Yeah.
we'll read this next
exactly.
week. There's 3 passages in the Old Testament that say God gave the land to Israel, and it's over. The last one was 1,900 years before Christ. But see, the Christian Zionists think they still have it's still in the future, and
exactly.
it's not.
Maybe next week we talk about Dr. Michael Hoffman, who actually debunked all these mythology, and we talk about it. But take a look at what they're doing. They're destroying the artifacts of ancient nations, Palestine, Syria, Iraq, and then people in Afghanistan, and then finally they want to get rid of Iran. Right. It's very systematic, very recently, very Jewish.
Right. Of the Jewish banksters, that is. Because again,
well, no. What I meant was,
I know you did, but I want to clarify because I'm 1/4 Sicilian, Ken, and I always say that if somebody attacked the mafia,
you're part Iranian.
Yeah.
Sicilians are Iranian.
Are they? If somebody attacked the mafia and I said, quit attacking my heritage, I hope people think I was either deranged or part of the mafia. So attacking this criminal Jewish worldwide shadow government is not attacking the everyday Jews, which they want you to think. You find their crimes out and they say, you hate all Jews. No, we hate your crimes, big bankers. That's what we hate. Okay, Ken, close us up. We got about 4 minutes left, 3 minutes, but close us up till the music starts, and then we'll say goodbye at that time.
I wanted Ken to mention his new project if he can, if he wants to talk about that, and give the website if he'd like.
Yeah.
Well, I am doing something. It's called World Citizen Solutions. People can look that up, and I don't have the time to explain. But since I've only mentioned that much, the first thing I want to say is one of the disinformation agendas to try and combat what it is that I'm doing is to imply that this somehow would hasten a new world order, a one world government. It is the exact opposite of that. People will need to get beyond the disinformation to be able to understand the truth, and obviously I need more time. But the reason why I initiated it is because I don't see anything better on the table to be able to truly unite people in a meaningful way. And this is one of the things that we hear people say all the time, but how are we going to actually try and unite on a meaningful level? What is it that can unite us? In my opinion, the thing that needs to unite us, it's the most simple, most basic thing, and it's part of why I'm confident that it will resonate once this is put forward. But the bottom line is, if you want security, it's one of the things they try and sell us all the time. For your own security, we have to do this, we have to do that. The only way to actually achieve any real security is to make sure that your fellow human beings have security. If your fellow human beings are being invaded and occupied, if their rights are being trampled on, they're being put in Guantanamos and things like this, guess what? People are going to be upset. And if it was happening to you, do you think you wouldn't be violent? Do you think you'd be nonviolent if somebody was doing that to you or your family? Of course not. Many Americans, if they're to be honest, know damn well they'd be as violent can be. We're already a violent society. So if you want security, what you really need to do is start looking at the other as you would yourself. If you don't want your nation to be invaded, don't invade another nation. If you wouldn't want your country bombed, don't bomb another nation. If you wouldn't want to be put in jail with no due process of law and left in a dungeon for the rest of your life with no prospect of getting out, don't do that to someone else. It's the golden rule. And the process of affecting a better world, in my opinion, starts with us as people, the ones who are sane, the ones who can realize the magnitude of the circumstances we face, the reality that we may very well steal away our children's future. We must find a way to unite. In my opinion, the way to unite is on the golden rule. If I would want it done to me, then I shall not be involved nor finance activities which deny people essential natural rights.
And remember, Iran, Libya, all these countries, Iraq and Libya, none of these countries were threatening to attack the United States.
Exactly.
It was the neocon bankers, the Jewish banksters behind the international banks that Donald Trump mentioned the international banks this week. They're the ones that used our military to do these destructions of civilization for no reason whatsoever. Ken, you're such a great spokesman. If you want to come back, we'll have you back on one of these final three programs, because I'd like you to go into your thing on World War III, but continue, although we're right at the music almost. So say a few more words. There's the music. Say a few more words, then we're going to have to say goodbye due to the clock.
Look, the bottom line is that we have it within our capacity to take back the power we've relinquished. These son of a bitches who are running the world, they have nothing but that which we have given to them. We need to take it back.
Yeah, remember, we're on a major AM network. Ken O'Keefe, thank you. Nicky Nelson, thank you. We're going to talk about next week, and we really appreciate you being on the show, okay?
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, Q, we're going to be back next week and the next week and the next week.
Definitely.
Okay, a lot of people said they were blocked, so we're going to have to post the show. Hope we'll get version from this.
Okay, if we could turn the music down just a little. Okay, so Nikki, that's good. Ken, thank you very much. So we're going to be back next week. This is Let Freedom Ring 2016, the radio show.
Yes.
Dr. Kuimars Kiani, nicknamed Dr. Q. That Dr. Q sticks in everybody's head right away, running for the 1st District of Ohio. If you want to send him a message, write in Dr. Q. It's not going to defeat the incumbent Steve Chabot, who in many ways is a good guy, but Steve is not on, like the rest of the congressmen. They're supporting Israel 1,000%,
exactly.
and we got to have a voice, and Dr. Q is our voice in this race on getting that information out. So let's see. We will be back next week. You can go to targetfreedomusa.com. That's targetfreedomusa.com. Next week, we're going to talk about with Nicky Nelson how we're being hacked. Constantly. There's an attempt to hack us constantly from various places.
Exactly.
But targetfreedomusa.com, and then we also have in the documentation section at letfreedomring2016.com. You can find all these links there. So we have about 45 seconds left. Dr. Q, why don't you say something to everybody, say goodbye, and we'll see you next week at 2 p.m. on KRC.
Well, definitely. I am Dr. Kuimars Kiani. I'm running for Congress in District 1. Please vote for me, because I am going to stand up in the face of the globalists that are hijacking this country.
Very good. Okay, now... So we'll be back next week, 2 p.m. This is Jim Condit Jr. co-hosting. I'm Dr. Q's campaign manager, and he's one of the few people who I would manage his campaign. He's pro-life. He's for all of the justice on stopping all these needless wars. And so we'll see you next week at 2 p.m. here on WKRC. Tell your friends. We'll also have this program up on Facebook and on YouTube, one way or the other. And we'll let the music close the show for the last 12 seconds or so. Thank you very much.
The proceeding was a paid political program, and the station was required to air it. The Cincy Music Series welcomes 1960.